Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader. We've got kind of a short video for this week's vintage collection market update. There just really hasn't been much that's sold on eBay. As usual, the new arrivals on the market seem to command massive prices. If you can get your hands on something early and get it up on eBay saying in hand, you can get like 10 times your money. It's pretty crazy how that continues to happen. There's something about the vintage collection that's been pretty dead lately. There just hasn't been a lot of massive deals or anything like that. But all that being said, we've got a Salacious Crumb, the original issue VC 66 or 67, which one it is. And then the SDCC Death Star box set. Both of those were at auction, and they did sell recently. We've got some graded items, some early stuff, but just in general, it's kind of the usual suspects. So I tried to pick stuff that I maybe haven't talked about in a little while. Power Droid, I went back and even looked at Seller's other closed auction. He hasn't sold anything really in the last 2 weeks. This is the only one that sold here recently. He might have had two of these as well, because I feel like I talked about a different one that he had. But this is the Canadian C-3PO. This is the one with the Boba Fett error, and that one sold for $90. I know he's had the Luke Bespin, the Han Solo Echo base, the Boba Fett on the Boba Fett error. He's had a bunch of these here recently, and that one did sell for $90 plus $7 shipping. Here was a Return of the Jedi Boba Fett. This one obviously has the prototype Fett armor. It is kind of weird too, right? We have the Boba Fett with the rocket firing Boba Fett offer, the Boba Fett with the rocket firing error Boba Fett error offer, and then you have this one with the prototype Fett. So it is kind of weird how you can get multiple different Fetts with multiple offers that kind of go together. So it's just an interesting thing that I've noticed. But this one sold for $140. And that's about right. I mean, I found some that, for this particular example, return retail release with the offer sticker. I found several between $125 and $150-ish that all sold here recently. So this one looked like it might have even had some kind of light denting or something going on in the corners. That's one thing that drives me crazy too, or used to drive me crazy when I was obsessed with sending stuff in for grading. Some of those star cases, they can really damage the figures. And I found that the clamshells by Case Shells, Tom Hogan's Case Shells, those are the best for not getting indentations on the cards. But there's figure shields. I hate figure shield. The figure shields are garbage. The only things that figure shields are good for are the big ones, like the big carded Black Series figures. I think they're the only ones that really make them, and those fit perfectly. But the figure shields for the 3 3/4 inch line, in my opinion, are garbage. Go to Case Shells. Tom Hogan, he's a friend of the channel. He didn't ask me to do this. I'm just doing it because he puts out a good product. He's got sliding acrylic cases. He's got 3-pack, the multi-pack TVC sliding acrylic cases, and he's got single carded clamshells. So caseshells@yahoo.com is how you can reach him if you want to buy anything from him. But don't buy figure shields. God, those are terrible. Absolutely terrible. I had some that just bent the cards up and they caused warping. Awful. And I think that's what happened here is what I was getting at. You can see there, they put it in some kind of case and it dented the card. It drives me nuts. Next up, this seller had a couple of nice unpunched that sold. Star Wars Galaxies. I feel like they're always at the upper end of the price range. But this one looked pretty nice from the front anyway. This one was the Clone Trooper 212th Battalion. I really like that card image, by the way. Something about that card image really hits. $90 on that one. This one looked like it maybe had a little card curl going on. But if you get a case shell from Tom Hogan, it'll straighten it out. And his sliding acrylic cases are also very nice. I've given a few of those away on the channel over the years. But this VC38 $89.98. And they had this one that sold for $140. And that's what I'm talking about. It's Star Wars Galaxies always has pretty nice stuff, but they're always kind of high. Usually this is $100 to $110. In an auction, you might even get it under $100 now. I think we talked about that last video or 2 videos ago. But the Shot Trooper, that's another one I really like. I love the way the Shot Trooper looks, and that's why it's so expensive. It's just an in-demand card back, and I understand why. And did any of you go see Revenge of the Sith in the theater when it was out? I didn't go see it, but it did like $25 million, which is awesome for a re-release. It might even be a record for a re-release. But I thought that was pretty cool, and I would have liked to have done that if I hadn't been completely swamped with work and with kids' activities. I pre-ordered tickets for the new Mission Impossible movie. That's the only way that I get to go to a movie, is pre-order it, put it on my calendar, and turn my phone off. That's the only way I can do it. Otherwise, I'm just a glorified taxi driver for my kids. All right, anyway, that's enough about me. 140 on that VC 110. I thought that was a nice card, though. I love just something about that one. And shout out to James M. He sent me one of these that was Canadian, man. That was a hot item. I don't know. I just love that. There's something about that one that really pops for me. Expanded Universe ARC Trooper Commander. This one sold for $98.98. Again, Star Wars Galaxies. I found this one for cheaper, though. You can get this one for cheaper, but you know you're going to pay a little bit more with this particular seller. And I don't know why, because you know if you look at it, it's got edgeware on this one. So make sure you really zoom in on these photos from this seller, because oftentimes he's overpriced, but he sells a lot because he's a trusted seller. I mean, he's done like 30,000 transactions, but just don't overpay and make sure that the condition is as advertised. Next up, we did have one Slave Leia that sold. We actually had a couple, but this one was the biggest price. $200 for a punched Revenge of the Jedi retail release with the Boba Fett offer. That's high. Don't pay that for a punched example. For an unpunched example, I could see paying that, but there was another one of these, exactly the same, that sold at auction for like $168, $165, somewhere in there. I forgot to pull it up. I meant to pull it up to pair with this one, but don't spend $200 on a punched. Spend $200 on an unpunched. So that was a sale there. And then we had another one from Star Wars Galaxies. They're kind of out of order here. At least on this one, he showed that this one had a slight defect. And that's why it sold for $78.98. I saw this one get listed for $78.98. And I was like, oh, I can send this out to my Patreons. And then I noticed there's litho tears up here. There's edgeware up here on the top of the card. And then obviously that crunch in the corner. I mean, $78.98 is too high for that. For the Star Killer. It is the first issue, but you know, nowadays the first issue in mint condition is like $100. It's come back down because of the, you know, the reissue phenomenon, the reissue syndrome that we like to talk about the vintage collection. So this one was, you know, even at $79 was overpriced to me. Next up, I do have an update for the 4 Ghost figures, $260 on this one. I've been finding the best way to get these. If you want to get all of them and you don't want to deal with like multiple packages, then it seems to be about $250. But if you buy them individually, you can get some good deals. I mean, I've seen some, even Power Droid, the seller, he's had some of these individually listed for below market. So you can find these for better deals if you're willing to deal with separate shipping and all that. This was free shipping too for all 4 items. And so that's that. But $250 to $260 seems to be the going rate there. We had a Tauntaun. I've got some vehicles and stuff, and then we'll get into some graded and some other big ticket items. Target exclusive Tauntaun 110. I found another one that sold at 105. And here's the ridiculous stuff. And this is what we talked about, I think, last week or the week before. But the new issues, if they're in hand, highlight in hand. If you got them in hand before everybody else, crazy people will spend 10 times fair market value. And on a side note, did anyone ever really think that we would see Jar Seaboth in the vintage collection or the Heir to the Empire at all? I mean, it's like a fever dream from like 5, 6, 7 years ago for me when I was rereading the Heir to the Empire, rereading. And I loved the image on the card back. I love the figure. I like everything about this figure. It's about what I pictured him to look like, just based on the novels. But I never thought that we would see Heir to the Empire on the vintage collection. It's just crazy. And, maybe we'll have more surprises like this, but it's pretty awesome to see. But 125 and 125 for Grand Admiral Thrawn. The pre-sales on eBay for the whole 3-pack is like $100, but I wouldn't buy a pre-sale. But just for the fact that they're in hand from certain people, they're willing to pay stupid money. 125. This is how I pictured Grand Admiral Thrawn to look in the Ahsoka series. I wish he had. I wish he was a little more intimidating in live action. I think they kind of did him dirty. They did Thrawn dirty, in my opinion, in the live action Ahsoka. But this is how, in my mind, how I always picture Thrawn. It's just kind of chiseled, calculating. You got 15 things going on behind the scenes. Oh man, that's just an awesome book or trilogy. Here's the AT-AT. This was an Empire Strikes Back. This was at auction too for $523. That's the lowest price I've seen for a while. It did have a slight ding on the back, as you can see there. $523 though for a sealed ESB Toys R Us AT-AT. And here is the Salacious Crumb, the first issue VC66 Salacious Crumb. And this one sold at auction for good money. Good money, $4.95 on this one. So even despite the reissue phenomenon, obviously this was reissued as part of the Jabba the Hutt action playset, you would think that this would be coming down. And I'd be curious to see if it does. Like, what will this look like a year from now? I don't know. Do you still think it would be $500? I don't, personally. I don't think that people are still going to be willing to pay $500 for it. I don't know, though. Who knows? Because it is the first issue. It is, from a SDCC set. Maybe people will continue to spend a lot of money on this one. And the mouse droid, obviously, hasn't been reissued. But if they reissue the mouse droid, that would be interesting, too. But I doubt they do. But this one, I don't see this one holding its value, personally. I just think it's going to continue to come down. But maybe I'm wrong. But that one did sell in an auction for $4.95, $9 shipping. And then here is the whole set. So we got the entire set and all the figures, including the mouse droid and Salacious. And this one sold at an auction for $14.50. That's about the going rate. We've seen some numbers higher. We've seen some numbers lower. But a good rule of thumb, if you're looking for this set, is about $1,400 to $1,500. That's about a going rate. And it looked to be in pretty good shape. I mean, it was very, very nice. So I think, that's come back up a little bit. We found some data points for a while there that were like $1,100, $1,200. But, again, going back to the Salacious Crumb reissue, does that eventually cause the SDCC box set to go down? And that's where I don't know. I think that there's just something about this set that's always going to be timeless. If they reissued the whole set, then yeah, maybe. I mean, obviously it would come down, but I don't think they will. I mean, maybe they do for some anniversary, but I hope they don't. I hope they keep this one a one and done, and just kind of move on. But that one did sell for $14.50. Some graded items. Remember, I mean, I don't know if this is how I felt. Okay, when The Mandalorian came out, carded, this is going to be the first Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is a pop culture icon beyond Star Wars fans. Baby Grogu. I've got to get the first one graded because it's always going to be worth so much money. Well, that was until Hasbro remanufactured or increased the manufacturing batch for this like 15,000 times. So as a result, it's supply and demand. There's a lot of supply of this original Mandalorian VC-166, and there's not much demand. So even in an AFA 9.0 uncirculated, it's $100 these days. But I remember when this one came out, and I was like, oh my God, I want to get 10 of these. These are going to be worth a fortune in 10 years. Yeah, no, they're really not, John. But that one did sell for $100. We had some lower grade items, but I wanted to point them out. This was the Imperial Assault Tank Driver CAS-80 that sold for $100. We had the Target exclusive Droids R2. That one sold for $110. I'll be curious to see if this one, the C-3PO and the Boba Fett, ever continue to be collectible. I feel like those have kind of come and gone, but I just really like them. I thought that they were really nice, and I don't know if they're ever hold their value or not, but that 80 grade sold for $110. This Darth Vader Dark Times, I always like this one too. Shout out to Gary W. who gave me one of these. Uncirculated 8.5, $110 on that one. And then the last one is another one I really like. This is the vintage comic art edition of Boba Fett. Obviously a repaint, another Target exclusive AFA 9.0. Now this seller had 3 of them, and they all sold for $190. That's a big number. Those are big numbers there. $190. All three of them sold, and they sold very quickly. So that's interesting. You know, maybe that gives you hope that maybe some of these Target and Walmart exclusives will continue to be desirable among collectors down the line. So anyway, that's all I really had for this video. Be sure to leave me a like if you enjoyed it. Thank you, as always, for watching, and I'll be back soon.